Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to get started now. So today we're going to be discussing how the ExpandIT solution works for service organizations, and specifically we'll look at how ExpandIT integrates into Microsoft Dynamics D365 Business Central jobs. And I believe most of you are familiar with ExpandIT, but for those who don't know, ExpandIT is a Microsoft Dynamics independent software vendor, and we specialize in service management. And if I haven't met you already, my name is Julissa Gonzalez. I work on the marketing side here at ExpandIT. And I also have Taylor Rogie, who is a field service product expert and business analyst, who will be speaking in just a few minutes. So just a few housekeeping notes before we begin. We are recording today's session, and everyone who registered will get an email with a link to the on-demand version within the next few days. The session will run for approximately 30 minutes, which does include time for Q&A. That being said, if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to submit them through the Q&A panel on your RingCentral console, and we can address them towards the end. And if for some reason we don't have enough time to address all of your questions in today's live event, please be assured that we will follow up with you directly following the webinar. So the agenda is as follows. We'll take a look at the objective of the webinar. Next, I'll discuss the key takeaways. Taylor will then take over and get into the demo part. We have allocated some time for Q&A at the end, and we'll finish off with next steps and additional resources you may use. So what is the main objective of the webinar? The main objective of this webinar is to provide an educational session on how ExpandIT integrates to Microsoft Dynamics D365 Business Central jobs. And the areas covered will include how ExpandIT integrates with Business Central jobs, when to use jobs versus service orders, where the consumption is recorded in Business Central, and adding tasks from the field to a work order. And with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Taylor to get started.
Thank you. All right, so why do we use the jobs module in Business Central? So we usually see the jobs module being used for long-term orders where there may be multiple tasks needing to be performed. These longer orders may span over weeks, months, or years. So the jobs module in Business Central creates the ability to have tasks which define different parts of work needing to be done, task level totaling, which shows the budget versus the actual costs and sales, booking work in process or progress, otherwise known as WIP, for the costs and sales, and planning lines, which details out each task, including budget and or billable lines. And those lines will either be a resource or an item with those item lines can be inventoried or non-inventoried. So what do jobs allow? They do allow tasks, planning lines, job ledger entries, which books part of the WIP. So it allows all of these different things, which in turn lets ExpandIT or the person who is scheduling utilize the information for long-term projects. So we have our job tasks. So job tasks are important as they create the ability to have jobs directly integrate with sales orders. They also break up long-term projects into manageable tasks that can be scheduled and organized. Job tasks also create the ability to track costs across multiple tasks on a job, which gives the company the ability to plan and report off of what has been completed and what still needs to be completed. Another feature of using tasks is that the totaling lines are integrated natively as well. So this gives companies the ability to get a snapshot of the costs and sales across the specified tasks on a job or multiple jobs even. It is giving the companies the ability to also compare apples to apples, even through reporting. In many cases, this gives companies also the ability to set up jobs in a way that they're able to report off of phases and steps which specifically relate to their own industry. So tasks can be set up which any way, honestly, that a company feels accomplishes and defines the different areas of reporting, scheduling, and cost and sales recognition for their own company. So the second level of detail on a job are the planning lines. Planning lines allows for the jobs to have the details to complete each task or what is expected to be needed to complete each task. This is how companies can start building their budget. We will get into the actual part of this in a few seconds. So the job planning lines can have budget, billable, or both budget and billable lines, which allows that project manager to determine what may be required to complete a task. To mention, the planning lines are at each task level. So similar to service item worksheets on the service module side, planning lines are really those details behind what needs to be done out in the field. So on those lines is where you can then define the type of line that you want. So you have item, resource, GL account, or text. If an item is selected, you'll be able to select that item from your item cards, which can be inventoried or non-inventoried. If you select resource, then you can select a resource card to define the resources needed to complete the task. So those resources can be people, can be heavy equipment, trucks, anything that is needed to get the job done. And then next you have your GL and text types, which are additional features. So the third level of detail is the job ledger entries, which are actuals that get booked as job costs. So these lines also can be booked as WIP if the job and task goes over a long period of time and costs and sales need to be financially recognized. So when the visit is complete within ExpandIT, the actual consumed time and materials is sent back internally in ExpandIT and can be reviewed and approved to send to Business Central to post to the job ledger entries in BC. Within ExpandIT, we also have auto approvals. So if you do want the material items to automatically be sent back to the order, that can be set up through our auto approval section. But maybe you want time to be edited and approved by an internal resource through ExpandIT. That's always possible. By using job tasks, planning lines, and job ledger entries or WIP, this gives a project manager a full picture of what has been budgeted versus the actual costs at any given period of time. So again, this is for your longer term projects. So next here is a workflow between Business Central and ExpandIT. So first thing is the job is created, then tasks are entered, job planning lines are filled out. At that point, data is pulled from Business Central into ExpandIT. Job tasks are planned in ExpandIT through a work order. The field is consuming the time and material. After that, the time and material can be approved, either again, manually or automatically. That data is then sent back into Business Central, and the time and material is posted to the job ledger entries through a job journal in Business Central. So ExpandIT is able to pull data from the Business Central environment through an extraction of data, which can be run multiple times per day. And through that extraction of data, we are pulling all new and modified records to display in the ExpandIT planning board for planning purposes. This allows the dispatcher to know what new work is needing to be addressed. So if the job is created in Business Central, we are pulling that into our system with no duplication of work. All that is needed, all the needed information for planning is automatically pulled when that extraction process does run. So while pulling the job, we're also pulling the tasks and planning line details if they have been entered. This again is displayed on what we call a work order in ExpandIT. So now that we have all of that information needed for planning, the dispatcher is able to add a new work order from the planning board and select the project and task. Within ExpandIT, it is creating a work order. A work order is what holds all of the details from Business Central and will have planned visits against it. Because there are more details on a job, the Planning tab would need to be filled out to plan the resource for the date and time the resource is expected to be on the job site. From here, if you've seen our presentations, you're able to add coworkers, which are, again, any resources, meaning people, heavy equipment, trucks, anything that's needed to be scheduled to get the job done directly from the planning board. And then once that work order has been planned and it is a status of appointed or accepted, it's visible to the mobile device or of the resource or resources assigned. So if they have reception, they can see it right away. So next, within the work order, all of the details from the job are visible and able to be edited. So the job tasks from Business Central can be added to the task tab and ExpandIT. The job planning lines from Business Central is now on the lines tab under the budget lines. So in order to show the lines to the field, you would need to add it to the planned lines by clicking the light bulb icon to the right of each line. From here, the additional material and or resource lines can be added to get the correct information to the field technician. Again, this is just what is planned to be used. So all of those details that were pulled from Business Central are on the work order, which is visible to the mobile user. And that is without having to re-enter or double enter anything. The new information added, because maybe it wasn't in Business Central, is all that was manually done. So if that job is set up with all of the tasks and the planning line details, the only thing you would need to enter from ExpandIT is the planning entry, also known as scheduling. So now that the field sees the work order, they can view all work details, start that visit to begin tracking time. We can break out travel time and work time based on work types set up in Business Central so that the detailed time can be evaluated. It's always good to know if you're traveling to a job site longer than you are out on the site, especially if budgets do not include drive time. So the technician, once the visit is started, can be entered the materials that have been used, fill out any forms, attach pictures, and much more. Now, once all of that time and material is collected at the end of each visit, which could be 1 or more days, the data is sent internally within ExpandIT for an administrator to review the time and material and approve to send back to Business Central. As we did mention, there is the ability to have automatic approvals as well. So next, when the approved time, material, order statuses, etc. are done, the data is sent back to Business Central into the job journal that is defined in the ExpandIT setup. So this gives the person who is posting these lines the second time, basically an ability to view, edit, or resolve any errors. And then those records are posted to the job ledger entries, which are related directly to the job. So the data, which is the actual time and material, can be viewed on the planning lines in the field called Transfer to Journal or directly at the job ledger entries page. One thing to mention natively with Business Central, if the time and material is consumed and being tracked to the job, it needs somewhere to go. So we may not require tasks within ExpandIT, but Business Central does require tasks to be linked to posting time and materials through that job journal. So that's like a full picture of how we start working with Business Central jobs and bring all that data back into ExpandIT, and then we collect the information and send it back into Business Central. So if you're familiar with your Business Central tables, those job journals, again, it's bringing in all of the data we're sending it. It can be edited, and usually the resource cost is coming from the resource card or the resource cost table, and it can then be modified in Business Central. So what we send back is what we've collected, but if it is modified within that job journal, that is what is being posted as the actuals to the job ledger entries. Okay. So another cool feature we have in ExpandIT is that we can actually create on-the-fly jobs and work orders from within the planning board or the mobile device. So this allows the scheduler to create everything from within one system and does not require them to go back to Business Central to create it before planning. So we want to be clear, though, that this is a basic creation of a job and tasks. So if there are templates being used or customizations within Business Central, those are not applied here within ExpandIT. This is the bare bones of creating a job to make the technician or field representative being able to receive that information needed to get the job done. So all information will need to be manually entered into ExpandIT if you are creating one through our system. So I'm going to actually go ahead and show you our system so that we can explain how to create a job. So the first thing is from the planning board, you're going to come up to create new work order. And from there, it's going to pull up this screen, and we can either select a customer or we can directly go into search for project. Search for project is going to give you the list of all of the jobs that are available. So I can put in part of a name. I can see that there's 2 of these jobs right here that has part of the word meadow. I can select the project I want. You can see it filled in my customer, filled in my work description. I would then go ahead and click proceed with selected. Into each of the tabs, it's brought in as much information from that job as it can, but I can always edit this. And I can enter in any additional information as well. From here, immediately, you're going to want to go over to your tasks tab, and I'm going to want to click add. And here are my tasks that have been already added into Business Central on this job. Now, I can always come here and add a manual task as well if I would like. So if I wanted to add a manual task, I can put in, maybe, let's say customer service. I can add that in, click the add button, and it will actually add this in as its own task now. So because I'm creating a new task, I'm not going to have any lines that are already pulling from Business Central to my budget lines. So that would require me to enter any planned lines directly onto this work order. So again, I can select either a product or a resource. If I wanted a product, I select my task of customer service. I can select an item, select my inventory location that I want it to be deducted from when it sends back into Business Central, and then click add line. So at that point, I've now added a line in for the field to see that. Again, I can come and add any attachments. I would then need to immediately go over to my planning entries because I don't have anything already from the planning board. So I need to click add new. I can type in who I want to go out to this site. I can pick my date and time for that one. So maybe let's say I'm going to go back a day. We'll go to the 2nd. And from here, I can change my duration. So let's say I knew this was going to take us 24 hours to do. I can enter that 24 hours, and you can see that my end date has now changed to 12/7. So that's going to allow me to plan across those 5 days. So I can click add, save and close. And at that point, it has now added my entry or my job to these days. So I know that I can go out to this job each day from there. The same thing does apply if we already had a work order created from within the system. I can have multiple tasks on one work order. So you can see my tasks. I can see all of my different lines that I have. I can always add another task here as well. Maybe I'm like, oh, now we need to go out and do inspection 2. I can add that directly on here as well and go through my day. So it makes it really easy. So now if we do go over to our mobile device, here's our mobile client. The first one I want to show you is that I can actually work on a job. So let's say I want to be on this job site right now. I'm working here, and maybe you get a phone call, or the superintendent at that site comes up to you and says, hey, I need you to do some more work out here. It's not related to fabrication and it's not on site. I can, from the work order that I'm already working on, add another task. So I can click that plus sign and manually enter my task. So I can say, maybe bath 3 installation. I can see and add that right here, and it's going to add that on. Now you see this little icon of a person walking. That is where all of my time and material is being tracked onto as of right this second. But now that I have my new task, I can actually come click on that new task. It will change everything and add my time and material for this task directly to that one. So I can come back over to my materials used, because I don't have anything that was planned. Select if I use some material, add it, to my materials used, and it's now going directly related to that task. So you can now see my task is bath 3 installation. If you, for whatever reason, made a mistake, you can always change it from here as well. So that's how we can add a task directly to a work order that we're working on. Now, what I can also do is I can add a work order from within the mobile site as well. So going to our menu, I can actually come in here. I can click create new work order, and it's going to go through the same type of selection process. I can select a customer. So let's do resort. I want to add in this for a customer here. I can create a new address. I can select an address. Let's just use our default. And I would come directly over to none, because at this point we're creating a work order or a job from scratch. So this is where I can actually add in my task description. Click OK. It's going to add my task here. And now I can add in my actual work description. So what do I need to go out and do? So I can say, you know, resort, fabricate multiple slabs. I can add that in. I can see what my planning is. I can plan this now to myself. I can plan it to a pool. So let's say I want to add this to my North America pool. I can add it there. So maybe you know you're not coming back out there, but while you were on site, somebody asked for additional work, not going to be done today. You can add it to the pool, and that could trigger somebody in your planning or scheduling department to go ahead and move it and get the ball rolling, basically. So anytime you're creating those work orders, it doesn't have to be for you directly. Now, if you do create it against the work order you're working on, you're adding it to the work order, and in a sense, that's making it sound like you're going to go do that work right then. So definitely, if you are creating a work order to have somebody else reschedule, additional work needs to be done before we go out and do that job, I would always suggest planning it to a pool, to a scheduler, somebody else for that, or even yourself for a different day. So again, I can choose maybe, let's say the 12th, or sorry, I want to go here, the 12th of December, and I want to maybe be out there at 8, and I know that this is going to take us, let's say, 18 hours to do. I can plan all of that ahead of time right there, enter, and if you want to call before a visit, if it's urgent, any of that information can be right there. Click next. It's going to have us review everything. Again, we're just creating a new job, so there is no project or job number at this point because we're creating something new. And then I can click done. And now I've created this job. So back over on our planning board, I can actually see, if I move over to my tool, it will create us our planning entry to be able to go ahead and schedule it down. All right, so that is the different ways that we can actually schedule jobs, create jobs and tasks within ExpandIT. And then to be clear, these jobs and tasks will not be sent back to Business Central to be created until there's time or material consumed and approved onto that job. So I will hand it back over to you, Jaleesa, and thank you guys for joining us.
Perfect, thank you. So now we'll go into the Q&A section. And so one question we have here is, do job planning lines need to be created in Business Central to work with ExpandIT?
No, so they are not required. They don't have to be created. It is an additional feature when creating the budget of a job and task. So the reason I'm saying that is because when there are lines that are not entered into the system, then ExpandIT you're not going to see those details. So then from there, your field will have to scroll through or filter down to consume any of the material lines. And that will not go back into Business Central until it's been approved. So if you're not approving daily or you're not on auto approvals, maybe you're waiting for the entire job to be done out in the field, you don't approve until then, your inventory and your time will not be on the job ledger entries until it has been approved and goes through the job journal to be posted.
Perfect, thank you. And I believe those are all the questions for now. Again, I will display my contact information on another slide, so if anybody does have additional questions, feel free to contact me. And with that being said, there are a few additional resources that are available for your use. So as mentioned, we will distribute the recording afterwards, so you can go over it again and use it as you may like. There are other educational videos on our official YouTube page, and we always say stay tuned for additional webinars in the coming months. And with that being said, thank you everyone for attending this session, and we hope you have a great day.